Hey guys, today we are going to be working in the workbook on page 15, 16, and 17. So make sure you have your math workbook where you can take notes and a pencil or a pen. So we're on page 15 in the math workbook and we're doing lesson 3 from module 1. The title of today's lesson is called Regroup and Rename Numbers. Our objective today is regroup and rename multi-digit whole numbers. The first problem says, in Spark Your Learning, there are about 18,500 known species of butterflies in the world. Show how you can regroup and rename. Regroup and rename the number 18,500 in 5 different ways. So they've given us the number 18,500 in standard form. I'm going to write 18,500. That is in standard form. I want to label these so that I know, because we're working on place value. So I'm going to label this as my ones, my tens, my hundreds. The 8 is in the thousands place, and the 1 is in the 10,000s place. So I labeled it as 10,000s. So one of the ways we talked about last week was in expanded form and word form. So we're going to write those out. So one way we can do is expanded form. I'm going to abbreviate expanded form, and I'm going to look at the value of each digit. So that 1 is in the 10,000s place, so I have 10,000. The next digit is 8. It is in the thousands place, so I have 8,000. Then we're looking at the 5 in the hundreds place, so I write a plus sign. So expanded means we're adding them all together. And then we have a 0 in the tens and a 0 in the ones. So I do not have to write those values. So expanded form of 18,500 will be 10,000 plus 8,000 plus 500. If I was going to write it in word form, change colors. So word form, and I'm going to write it out. So I like to practice saying the number 18. That comma says 1,000. So 18,500. And I like to say it over and over while I'm writing it. 18,000. So 18,000. After you write the 1,000, you put a comma, 18,500. So 18,500. We can also show this using place value blocks. So we know that we have 0 ones, 0 tens, but we have 500. So I'm going to this is 500. Remember, 100 is a flat. So that's a flat. So it's 100, 200, 300, 400, 500. And we call these hundreds flats. It's a flat. And if you were in class, I would show you actual place value hundreds flat. So you know that's that little grid. And it looks like it's got all these little lines. It looks like that. So that's the hundreds flat. But we also have 8 thousands and 1 10,000. So we have 18 thousands. And remember last week I showed you that 1,000 looked like that little cube. It was a 3D cube. But for today I'm going to draw thousands. It's looking like a flat, but I'm going to put a T in it. So that's 1,000. 2,000. How many thousands do we need to draw? 18 of them. So 1, 2, run out of space. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18. And let me check and make sure I have. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. These are hundreds. And then I should have 18,000. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18. So I have 18,000. So that would be if we drew it with place value blocks. Another way is to rename the number. So if we're looking at these numbers, I can say I have 18,500, but I could also rename it as 18,500. I can name it as, and I circle it, scoop it up, so this is my hundreds. I can name it as, so rename it as 185 hundreds. 185 hundreds. We could also rename it as, if I look at tens, so I come here on my tens, I'm going to scoop it all up. So I have 1,850 tens. And guys, it helps if you actually write on the number when we rename numbers. If you write on the number, we had a problem last week, number 7 on the quiz, and I went over that with you. When you rename a number, it's easy if we can take it where it says, so if we're looking at tens and we scoop it up. If we're looking at hundreds, we take the hundreds and we scoop it up. We have 185 hundreds. If we're looking at thousands, we can scoop it up. We have 18,000s. Okay? So, this is 5 ways. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 ways that we can rename or regroup the number 18,500. All right, on the next page. Page 16. It says, build understanding. The North American Butterfly Association runs about 450 butterfly counts. Each year, volunteers count all the butterflies observed within a 15-mile count circle in a 1-day period. For this year's count, Dr. Fiona ordered 1,700 pencils. So guys, they've given us a lot of information. They've given us 2 or 3 numbers. They've given us 450, 15 miles, and 1,700. What they want us to do is to show 1,700 using a large cube and flats, then draw a quick picture to show our work. So, if you were in the classroom, we would be in small groups and you would get some place value blocks and I would give y'all some thousands and some flats. But we don't have that, so the only information we're looking at though is this 1,700. We are not going to use 450 or 15. So if we're going to do it with thousands and hundreds, I have 1,700, I have 0 ones, I have 0 tens, I have 700s, and I have 1,000. So I don't need anything for ones or tens, but I have 700, so I'm going to do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I have 7 flats. These represent hundreds, so I'm going to write that here so that you know hundreds, flats. So those would be those little grid things like this. And they would have 10 rows across and 10 rows down, so that would be 100. But then I have 1,000, so this is where, remember my thousands, they look like the flats, but they were 3D, and since we only have one of them, I can draw that. So that would be your 1,000. So 1,700. When we talk about regrouping, we're going to look at this vocabulary word right here. It says, when you regroup a number, you exchange amounts of equal value to rename a number. Okay? So let me explain this to you. If you're here with me right now, I would tell you that if I went to the bank and I had a check for $1,700, okay, picture that. I just got paid and I have a check for $1,700. I could not get a $1,000 bill. I would say, hey lady, I need some money for my check, but they can't pay me in $1,000. There's not a $1,000 bill, but they can pay me in hundreds, okay? So I would say, hey lady, give me $1,700 bills, and that's how we would rename it, okay? So we would get 1700s instead of 1,700. So a good way to think about our ones, tens, hundreds, and thousands is if we think of money, we can relate it better, okay? So number A, or letter A, what is another name for 1,700 using thousands and hundreds? So we can write it out as 1,000 and 700s. I'm going to abbreviate hundreds, H-U-N-D, hundreds. B, if you regroup the thousands cube, so that's this cube right here, if we regroup the thousands cube as flats, so we're going to change in our thousands, we're going to get hundreds, how many flats would we get? So if we're going to change out 1,000, how many hundreds would we have? How many flats would we get? We would get 10. Okay? C, how many flats do you need to rename 1,700 as hundreds? So just as I was saying, I went to the bank to cash a check for $1,700. They could not give me a $1,000 bill, but they can give me $100 bills. So where I would regroup, how many hundreds would I get? I would get 17. So I would write 17 right here. I have 1,700s. And letter D, how can you rename 1,700 as hundreds? We can call it 1,700s. Okay. This is a really hard topic for place value is when we rename it. So a lot of times I'll use money examples. If I went to the bank and I needed a check for $5,000 and they're going to give me money, there's not a $5,000 bill. So they could give me 50 $100 bills instead. So 5,000 is the same as 50 hundreds. Okay? So on the next page, I want to do some practice activities with you. So on page 17, and I've looked at it, number 2 was not a very good problem, so we're actually going to skip number 2. We're not going to do that one. We're going to skip down. If you want to put a little X over the top part, you can. So we're not doing that one. From experience, I know that's just not a good example. So at the bottom of page 17, it says check understanding. So I do want you to fill this in, and then I'll go over the answers with you. So it says use the place value chart. This is the place value chart. This is it right here. Use the place value chart to help you regroup and rename the number. So if I have 23 10,000s, how many hundreds do I have? If I have 23 10,000s, how many thousands do I have? And if I have 23 10,000s, how many tens do I have? So we're going to look at this number. How would you do it if you have 23 10,000? So this is where our 10 is. So we have 23 10,000s. So this is what our number is. So the number you're working with is actually 230,000. So how many 10,000s would you have if you had it in hundreds? How many would you have if you had it in thousands? And how many would you have in tens? So you want to scoop it up. And right here, I want you to pause the video. I want you to do question 1, 2, and 3, and then start back. Okay, so if we were looking at this problem and it says 23 10,000s, how many hundreds would we have? So I'm going to come over here to hundreds and I'm going to scoop up how many hundreds I have. So I have 2,300 hundreds. Okay, how many thousands do I have? So we'll get thousands and I'm going to scoop it up. Thousands would be right here, 1,000. So I scoop it up, I have 230 thousands. And then how many tens do I have? So I'm gonna come over here. Tens, I scoop all of this up. I have 23, so I'm gonna change where my comma is. I have 1, 2, 3 zeros. 1, 2, 3 zeros, and a 23 in front of it. So you have 23,000 tens. And that's how you regroup and rename numbers.